All right, you good? All right. Let's see, it's 6:31. I'd like to call the August 1st, 2018 meeting of the Holly Township Planning Commission to order at 6:31. Before we get started, I would like to thank the Village of Holly Parks Commission, who graciously moved their meeting to another room in the building so that we could accommodate the crowd that we were going to have here tonight. So thank you to Chris Rankin and to the rest of the Parks Board for their consideration. So with that, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can I get a roll call, please?
Tony Coburn.
Here.
Lloyd Kernan.
Here.
Glenn Mitchell.
Here.
Pat Feeney.
Here.
Stacy Steckley.
Here.
AC Elray. Ted
Hey.
Gursky.
Can I get a motion to excuse Ted?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Glenn, support by Stacy to excuse Ted. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. AC should be here in a couple of minutes, so we'll hold off on doing that. Agenda approval. Just for clarification, I think what we're going to do, where is the engineer for Holly Hills? Okay.
No, not for Holly Hills, Township.
Okay. Do we have an engineer from Holly Hills here too, or is he?
Yes.
Okay. Most of the folks that are here I'm sure are here to hear what you two have to say. So what I think what we're going to do, instead of opening it up to public comment, then you guys will talk and then they'll have a bunch of questions that can't get answered. I'm going to have you guys stand up during public comment and address your concerns, and then when you're done, the public will have their 3 minutes each to ask their questions. Now, those questions will be directed to us. It's not going to be a back and forth between you guys and the engineers, but we will do our best to get the questions addressed and answered. So, with that, can I get a motion to approve the agenda, or do we have any corrections?
Do we need to make any amendments to the agenda doing that, or do we just, should we do that procedurally? Should we make sure that having the engineer speak, it doesn't make difference?
Part of public comment.
All right. Then I move we approve the agenda.
Okay.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Pat and support by Stacy to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, so we are moving on to public comment. Why don't you step up first?
Good evening. I'm Brent Levanway with Boss Engineering. I'm representing Maristus Communities, owner of Holly Hills. We're here this evening to request site plan approval, preliminary site plan approval from the township. We were at the meeting in June, and there were some comments from both the engineer and planner and some concerns from the fire authority. We have addressed many of those, and we resubmitted plans for this agenda. We have review letters addressing comments. They're dated July 2nd and June 26th. And those address essentially the planner and engineer's comments, and the planning consultant was previously recommending approval. They are continuing to do so. They did not issue a new letter. We do have a new letter from the township engineering consultant dated July 26th. And if I could just quickly go through some of those items. Some are statements, some are requests for additional information. So item number one, I believe everybody, I'm sure you all have it in your packet, talks about water main through the development and the necessity of obtaining permits. That is a upcoming step for us. Your plans do show the proposed water main locations and sizing. At the request of the fire authority, we have upsized all the water water main within phase 2 to 8 inches. Item number 2 talks about the fire authority and some concerns they have. If the Planning Commission recalls, we had a meeting set up with the fire authority. It was a couple days after the Planning Commission meeting in June. We've had that meeting. We talked obviously through all of the comments. In our resubmittal, we have addressed many of those comments. We do have the primary outstanding item is the ability for providing fire flow. We are currently working with DEQ on some modifications to the well house that would increase the ability to provide fire flow. So that is where we are at with that item. The other items, for the most part, have been addressed. If there are any specific questions or comments, I'd be glad to answer them from the fire authority. Back to the HRC letter, item number 3. Plans talk about or show the location of sanitary sewer mains, and again, we will need to obtain approval from DEQ wastewater for the development prior to proceeding to construction, so that's an acknowledgement on our part. Items 4 and 5 are basically related. They talk about more detailed grading. So we have a grading plan in the site plan set that you have, but I did bring a more detailed grading plan this evening. It's actually from our construction plans. So there are a few pages that I'll provide the Planning Commission Chairman when I'm done with my presentation. Moving on to number 6, which is the Falk Road entrance. Back in May, we actually received the permit application approval from the Road Commission for Oakland County. So we do have that, and I will provide that to the Planning Commission Chairman this evening. They did not request or require additional information such as a traffic study or that type of thing. And then lastly, number 7 in the HRC letter, again, it does reiterate the permits and approvals that are necessary prior to construction, and we also acknowledge that item as well. So I think with that, what I'll do is provide these 2 pieces of information to the Planning Commission Chairman. Again, it's the more detailed grading plan that was requested, and then also the May 19th, 2018 Road Commission for Oakland County approval of the entrance onto Falk Road.
Thank you.
And with that, unless there are other questions for me at this time, that concludes presentation and update.
Hang on. We're not going to do the questions back and forth during public comment.
Right.
But so please make yourself available.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Burton. I'm a partner at Hubble, Roth & Clark, the Township Engineers. And our last letter regarding this application is dated July 26th as referenced, and we do make 7 comments in there. And the engineer from the applicant has talked about a few and is providing information this evening. I was handed a permit and some documentation, not a chance to review it. Apparently there's a grading plan, have not had a chance to review it. And so I'm just going to go through this absent that information because I've not been afforded the opportunity to review that. In general, what our goal of this letter is to get enough information, not to cross the T's and dot all the I's of all the details necessary to build something, but it's to make sure that we have adequate information so that you can make informed decisions, and that the site plan is not likely to change because you need more room for a well site, you need more room for a wastewater treatment plant, more room for detention, and next thing you know, we're coming back for revisions after upon revisions. All the details in the permits, as noted, are secondary. We will deal with those at some point. At this point, we have not received information, and as kind of noted, that they can provide adequate water for fire to meet the fire needs, or what modifications are required. Let's just identify those and make sure they're included in the approval process or in the site plan that you have before you. So can they provide enough water or what is necessary to do that? I believe they will get there. But what does that take? Are there more wells? What's the impact of that? Are the permits? Preliminary concepts that will work are necessary. The same thing goes for the sanitary sewer. They have a plant. The plant has a discharge permit, which I was handed to when I sat down here. But it is the additional 100 and some units can be served by the existing plant. If it can't, what are the improvements that are necessary? What's the footprint? What do those look like? So what is this site plan look like when it's finished to accommodate that is our question. Detention. We don't need all the specifics, but if the detention needs to be bigger because there's no outlet, then what is the ramifications again on the layout, on the site, on the impact, the number of units, etc. We'll deal with the details on that, but some better information on that is really important at this point. The grading, again, not the finite details, those are subject to change, but enough grading information provided to make sure we're not flooding anybody else out, make sure, what is the impact of the development, are we going to get into some grades that are just, steep roads or not, probably not, but what are those impacts is some sort of preliminary grading plan. If they've received road commission approval for an entrance and all the improvements they are proposing on Falk Road, then so be it. I'm not aware that they had that. If they had that, then that would be converted. That's a road commission road, but a lot more traffic, or traffic will be. If the road commission for Oakland County has said we don't need a traffic study and it is okay to put this project out there, that's their jurisdiction. Again, first I've heard of that. So, and I would like an opportunity to review it, make sure we understand what those impacts are. But if they're not requiring a traffic study, we'd have to look into the ordinance and chat and see if there's an opportunity for you to request that. However, it's their road, okay? And they've probably made that determination. So at this point, what we're attempting to do by our letter is to get enough information out there so the final site plan is complete as to intent. What's necessary, what needs to be done, how is this thing going to look when it's done. The little details, moving of the grades, moving of the mains, how much filters or what improvements they need to do, the details of those we'll deal with during construction phase, just construction plan review. For now, we just want to make sure we have everything out there, knowing what it takes to make this development work. So with that, I will make myself available, answer any questions you guys want me to take care of.
Okay. Folks in the fire authority, do you want to speak now, speak later? You know what, just in the interest of getting everything out there, let's...
I'll stand right up here.
All right.
All right, so from the fire authority standpoint, we had identified 5 basic items that were lacking or we needed clarification on. Clear space between the buildings, the water flow, water main sizing, hydrant spacing, and access to the homes. So as of this point, as Brent said, they have increased the main size. It's on the documents. We're okay with that. I believe the engineer wants calculations to back it up. The water flow and capacity is still outstanding. We're waiting for that permit from the DEQ so they can modify the system, flow it, see where we're at. So as of today, there's no resolution to that issue. The hydrant spacing was phenomenal on the prints that we received. The only thing that we need to do, the fire authority, is provide them with a specification for the hydrant we want installed, which we can take care of that at a later time. The clear space between buildings has not really been addressed from what I could tell on the prints. I'm looking for something that says there will be 10 feet of clear space, lot line setback, and it will not be encroached no matter, whatever happens. I haven't seen that in the prints yet. To me, that's very important so that the current situation that exists out there doesn't perpetuate through the rest of the community. And then the last thing, which is the access to the homes. We had some discussion about the prefabricated stairways that get used. Again, not a showstopper. They are working with us to try to come up with a resolution to that. So long story short, I need to know how much water's in the ground and how much they're going to give us. So we're still held up there. Okay?
Thank you. All right, at this time, we will open up to public comment. Oh, yeah. Oh. Chair recognizes Supervisor Cullis.
Seeing as you're putting all, excuse me, seeing as you're putting all this information out ahead of your public comment, I received a call late this afternoon from Andrew Hart from the DEQ, and I received an email. I put together these packets. I've supplied one to the to Jamie with HRC that I got them. These talk about the permits that he's alluded to, that some of the conversation. These processes are working along. I made packets so each of you that would have them, you didn't have them in your packet because, as I said, I didn't get it till about 5 o'clock this afternoon. But I wanted you to get that information. I will supply you with a copy as well, seeing as you said you hadn't heard about it yet. But I'll pass these out. And then also in regards to the question that the Planning Commission had asked about the communication with the Township Attorney, we have done that. That will be presented as attorney-client privilege at the next Township Board meeting. I've had a chance to look at that material, and I'm going to be recommending to the board that we make that information available to the public. But of course, as you know, that's a board decision, but we'll be moving forward on that. So I just wanted to let you know those two things that are going on there.
Thank you. Can I use it for the meeting?
Is he going to summarize what's in here or something so we know?
What's that?
We don't have time to read this.
Yeah, no, we're not gonna, not today. No. This is homework. Okay. Oh, I thought you were stepping up to the mic, Mr. Love. Okay.
Oh.
Give him hell. All right. Anybody from the public like to step up to the microphone? You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Mike Mueller. I actually live in Linden, but I am running for state representative in the 51st District. I just wanted to stop by the community to introduce myself. I won't take long. A little bit about me is I'm a veteran. I was in the United States Navy for 4 years. After I got out of the Navy, I went to Eastern Michigan University. Graduated from Eastern Michigan University, went through the police academy, and I've been a deputy sheriff now for 18 years between Washtenaw County and Livingston County. Our family owns Mueller's Orchard and Cider Mill in Linden, so I'm a third generation farmer, and I just believe that my life experiences and my career paths make me the most well-rounded candidate to be able to represent the people. Our family had started Mueller's Orchard in 1941, and it's been in the community that long. And I started my career at Washtenaw County, and in 2005, my grandfather passed away. I decided to resign from Washtenaw County. I lost all my seniority, started over at pay to keep the family farm going. So I do things for purpose. I don't do things for ego. I do them for purpose. I went from making $60,000 to $70,000 a year down to $30,000 a year to work at a family farm just to keep in the community. Again, I've been out on the door since February. I don't know if I've been to any of your guys' houses or not, but the main concerns that I see in the community are the no-fault auto insurance that needs to be reformed, the tax on seniors' pensions and pension tax, and our roads and infrastructure. I know August 7th is coming up soon, and if I hadn't made it to your house, I'm doing what I can to do that, but I just wanted to stop by and introduce myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman in the hat.
How you doing?
Hi.
My name's Cliff Pashota. I live on Lacey Lake, which is on the southern end of the discharge of Holly Hills. It was back here in 1992 when the DEQ said that this was the best plant ever since ice cream. Of course, in 2014 they had 8 failures. In 15 they had 4 failures. In 16 they had 1 failure. I would like the board to find out what the written modifications were to stop the failures, and if it's failing on 1 phase, is it going to fail on 2? So my thought is, Joe Blow changing his oil at Holly Hills and putting the oil down the main drains coming directly into my lake. if this continues over a period of time, this is going to get really messy for them, for sure. So my recommendation to the board was, you know, I understand they have the right to build this thing, but I would like to see them use their discharge plant and discharge into the sewer. That's my thought. I guess that's all my questions were.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else? Mr. Taylor. Thank you.
Mark Taylor, 15566 Falk Road. I've heard a few interesting things from the two gentlemen from Boss Engineering and Hubble, Roth and Clark, which is the Holly Township person that But this letter I was writing because I was getting a little frustrated with the fact that we've been bringing up these items now for 2 to 3 different meetings, and we're not really getting any responses. I mean, direct, serious responses. I'll just go ahead and read this letter to the board. I'm writing this letter as a follow-up on the questions that we were brought up at the last meeting as an official request that we get specific answers to these issues. What was this discussion about a Phase 4, and if there is such a thing, we are to assume that it only falls within the original consent agreement boundaries. I don't know if there's a Phase 4 or not. Mr. Guy from Emeritus may be able to tell us that. We know there's a Phase 2. We know there's a Phase 3. We would like an overall site plan, including phases 2, 3, and if there is a 4, with any additional entrances or exits for these phases duly noted and an overall number of manufactured homes for the entire park. To this point, people, we still don't know how many homes we're dealing with here. We only have plans on Phase 2. Where's Phase 3? You cannot approve, I don't believe you can approve anything as a board about Phase 2 without further knowing the layout for a Phase 3 or beyond. We would like to request the entranceway for Phase 2 to be moved south along Falk Road so that it comes absolutely no closer than 100 yards south of the private drive at 1566 Falk Road. Item number 2. Where do we stand on the potential of the park having to connect with the Village of Holly water system, and subsequently who pays for what, and can the facility handle the added capacity? Can their own wastewater treatment plant handle the added capacity? Andrew Hartz, in the letter that we generated through Ruth Johnson, believes it can. But like the gentleman just noted, what more is going down the drains and going out into the Lacey Lake. Number 3, an overall review of the water runoff caused by this new development and the assurance that the water flow that goes across our properties on the west side of Falk Road has not been contaminated by the existing dump down there and or anything caused by the Meritus property as a whole. We do have a flow. When it rains extremely hard, it comes across Falk Road and it goes directly across our properties and down to Rice Lake. We want a review by MDOT and OCRC, the Oakland County Road Commission, on the impact of traffic burden this will place along the road and the intersections at each end of the road and the large S-curve in the north end of this road. The report that the Oakland County Road Commission was supposed to have generated, number 340531, only stated that a permit application has been reviewed or has been submitted and Falk Road will not be widened. I find that very hard to believe. That report number I got from their legal department was nothing more than the information I requested from them on the email, and the only thing that they stated right here in an email back to me, permit application for Falk Road has been submitted and is in review. Falk Road will not be widened. Now I'm hearing that Boss Engineering or whomever in Oakland County Road Commission has had these applications for that entrance in hand. I requested that by verbal when I called them. Now I'm hearing it's approved, and I'm hearing that Oakland County is just perfectly happy with not doing anything to Falk Road. I find that, you guys, we got to ask Oakland County Road Commission, come on, man. There's going to be 750 to 1,000 cars. We can't get by each other on the 17 and a half feet that currently exists. There's no way in heck that's not going to work. I do not want the Oakland County Road Commission to stick their head in the sand and play catch up later, and I think that's what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Reuben Cant. I live at 15600 Falk Road. I live right next door to the dump. They had a test well on my property. I didn't know what it was, and I ended up contacting Brian Clausen at the water department, and he pretty much said that the original intent was the water runoff from the manufactured park actually came through the dump property and down into Rice Lake. So they the DEQ put these test wells in there, and however, he said that information on it had kind of dried up from the last 8 years. There was a Tim Carpenter that was president of Geodynamics. It was a consulting firm. They were the ones that actually put the test well in, and they were monitoring what was leaching out of that dump. So they came up with the idea. They published it in the paper. Holly paid $103,000 for it, and the scope of it was that they were supposed to put another 10 test wells in, 11 of them total. So I got a hold of who they told me to contact at the DEQ, and this woman, I got her first name Jay, and I didn't write down her last name, and she told me that their final when they finally got together and decided what to do, they were to put it on hold because they had from the company, the manufacturing company, they were going to punch a hole in the aquifer, and the DEQ was like, no, you've got this issue here, you've got this water that runs off that goes through the dump that comes into our lake, Rice Lake, which I live on. The property that I live on is next to the dump. And whenever there's a rain event, and I mean not the rain that we've had yesterday or today, when we have some of these full-on day or two rains, we have some major league water coming out of that dump. To my knowledge, I've walked that property back there, and I have not seen another test well. And if they said they're going to have 11 wells to check this out, they're worried about something. My question to them was, since my property sits right there next to the dump, can I buy a piece of that property so that I can control the traffic that comes down my driveway? And according to them, that property is not for sale. And to the point that she told me that property will never be for sale until that dump's cleaned up. Well, if that property can't be sold, yet they could dump water or have these rain events that totally dump water onto my property and into the lake, I think it's something that needs to be investigated. And this thing about these wells, if the township paid for 11 wells, or at least paid for a study that said they need 11 wells, where are the wells? Where are the studies? According to the supervisor, Brian Clausen, he told me it had been 8 years since they've had any kind of information. So before this meeting, I contacted, again, the DEQ, and I'm supposed to be receiving some kind of information, but as soon as I get it in my hot little hands, everybody in here is going to get one. So I appreciate you guys looking into this and seeing if this company...
Say, when you're done, can I see that?
Sure. It's a newspaper article, and there's Tim Carpenter's name.
Okay.
Company that he...
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is John Ewan. I live at 15460 Falk Road. Last name is spelled Y-U-H-N. A little bit of an unusual name. I'd like to talk a little bit again about Falk Road itself, the future of Falk Road. As been said, we really don't know anything about if there's a Section 3 or 4, what it's going to look like, where the entryways onto Falk Road are going to be. So it's a little frightening. I would like to see Falk Road, and this is, I know this is projecting into the future a little bit, but you guys are going to be part of that, working with the county, I would think. I'd like to see Falk Road stay a one-lane road. I'd like to be assured that the trees are going to stay on the road. If there are any water mains or sewers that are going to be coming up Falk Road, I don't know if in the future it could connect to the village or what, but instead of tearing all the trees down, could there be, think out of the box and get that kind of piping into where it needs to be without destroying all those trees. There's people in this room that have lived on Falk Road for just a short amount of time. They love the trees. There's some of us that have lived on Falk Road for quite a while, and the trees are just a big part of, going in and out. I wrote a little thing here. Falk Road is not just a road; it's a local treasure. And if you haven't been down Falk Road in a little while, drive on down. There's several old growth trees. When I say old growth, 300-400-year-old trees, maybe more. In fact, the largest tree, we just measured it tonight. It's in our it's near our neighbor's driveway, but right out from my own driveway there on Falk. And I'd like my wife to come up because we're going to show how big the biggest tree on Falk Road is.
I was going to say, what are you trying to say?
We measured the biggest tree on Falk Road, and it is 6 feet across. So we're not playing around when we say these are treasure trees. This isn't just a little 12-inch tree. And this is only a 12-inch little wimpy tape, but all the way around the tree was 16 feet around the tree. It's a mighty oak, is what it is. So, I know some of this is in the future and that, but just trying to bring to your attention that it's a beauty road, or hopefully it will be.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Lisa Hogan. I live at 112 Harts Drive, and I'm looking at the same letter that Supervisor Cullis referred to from the DEQ that mentions the violations that the facility has already had. And obviously none of us are scientists here or engineers. We don't know what this means, but the fact that they've had violations in the past is very concerning to me, especially when everyone keeps saying, oh, the facilities are fine and nothing's happened in the past. And we have documentation now here from the DEQ that they've had violations going back to 2014, 15, 16, and 17. So I don't really understand what effluent violations of ammonia nitrogen are. I don't know what total phosphorus violations are. I don't know what total suspended solids are, but I can kind of guess, and that's a big concern to me. We keep hearing this, that it's not leaching out into our properties, and we have evidence it is. DEQ has evidence it is. So the interesting thing about this is, kind of a sidebar, I work for the world's largest management consulting firm, and I interview executives all day long. CEOs, CIOs, CFOs, CHROs, CMOs. And the one thing that every CEO and COO has taught me over my 30-year career is you're only as good as the people that work with you. And you're only as good as the clients you serve. I've never heard one person yet come forward and say that this is a good idea. No one has said this is a great thing for our community. These reports are going to keep coming at us. The data is going to keep coming at us. There's going to be things we don't understand. I think the thing that we need to communicate to our community is we need to stick together. We need to be vocal. We're probably not going to stop it. But this company, Meritus, I'm not even going to call this a Holly Hills thing, because they're our neighbors, they're our friends. They're affected just as much as we are. This is a big company coming in and taking advantage of all of us. They're only in it for the money. I think we need to start talking about things like Flint. And I don't mean from a water crisis standpoint, but from a branding standpoint. Maybe we need to go to Brian Lamb, who's the CEO of Emeritus, and talk to him about the fact that, look, you have a real PR issue here. He probably has no idea where Holly is because he lives in Florida, in Tampa. But he probably knows where Flint is. Probably every newspaper in the United States knows where Flint is. I think we can use that to our advantage to educate the community overall about what's happening here, how we're being taken advantage. Not only Holly, this is happening all over the place. So we're getting screwed, but the next guy down the line in the next community is getting screwed too by a company that really does not care anything about us, our health, our safety, our welfare, our well-being in this community. We need to be vocal about this. That's what I have to say.
Thank you. Anybody else? Going once, going twice.
Nope.
Oh, I see two hands. Let me get her. Come on. No? Okay.
Hi, I'm excuse me, Sue Julian, I think I'm fairly well known in the community as being aware of the environmental issues here. So I'm here to speak for the Shiawassee River. The Shiawassee River can't speak for itself. And I'm here to urge you to do the right thing, because there's, as a planning commission, you are planning for the future. We already have a problem with effluent heading almost to Lacey Lake at the present time. And additional effluent heading in that direction is going to be a problem that we can't really resolve. Why should we care? Downstream is the 10-year catchment zone of the wells for the village of Holly. We don't want to be in a situation where we have aquifer that we can't clear up, and that we could have avoided further contamination. I don't mean that there isn't any contamination there right now, but we don't need to make the problem any bigger when we can avoid it. The fact of the matter is, if you have water in an aquifer and you have a stream, they blend together. So what's in the Shiawassee River comes down in this way as pretty clear and uncontaminated. But if we add to it, we're adding contamination to the river can then add contamination back to the aquifer further down the stream. So I'm not an absolute expert on this. My husband's a geologist. He tells me not to use terms I don't understand fully, but I think that you can get scientific information about this. Why else should we care? That particular river system, and it's been in the news a lot lately, is a really valuable ecosystem created almost uniquely in the Midwest with an area that has fens and has species that are not seen in other places. It behooves us to think about what might be happening in that whole river system that we can take care of at this time. Why else should we care? I wrote a whole page of reasons here, and if you'll excuse me, I've just come from an emergency. I will give you a full list. I don't have one to pass out today. There is an absolutely observable effect from the effluent currently, and it's something I've watched over the years, and I might have to kick myself because I didn't myself go out and measure. But I think that we've all seen that where the effluent goes into the wetlands, the cattails green up, and it's they're actually just mowed down when there's a lot of exchange of water that goes in there. But you can see that that is reaching right to the edge of Lacey Lake. And Lacey Lake isn't a lake on its own. It's actually just a wide place in the Shiawassee River. So for a whole lot of reasons, asking the board to think in larger terms about what they decide can happen that will affect resource that's going to affect our community for a long time. That's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thought we had a race for the microphone there. I was going to wait and see who was going to win that one.
Hello, I'm Denise Camp, 15600 Falk Road, and I just wanted to read a little bit in an article that I found. It's American Society of Planning Officials Information Report number 84, and I just highlighted some things I wanted to read. Special uses generally have one or more, and sometimes all of the following characteristics. They require large land areas. They sometimes create an unusual amount of kind of traffic. They are sometimes obnoxious and hazardous. Typical special uses are airports, public utility buildings, and cemeteries. Trailer courts also usually possess most of these characteristics. In granting a special use permit, the Board of Appeals is required to determine what the effects of the special use would be on the neighborhood and the city as a whole. Often public hearings are required. Just a little bit more. The site should be in a residential zone if mobile home courts are permitted, or in a heavier zone provided the site is not subject to unhealthful or adverse influences. If unzoned, the location chosen should be such that the mobile home court will not be subject to unhealthful or adverse influences and will not itself adversely affect adjacent neighborhoods, which I feel it will be. A little bit more. Favorable views, existing trees, and other desirable site features, adequate protections shall be provided against any undesirable off-site views or any adverse influences from adjoining streets and areas. The conclusion, if trailer courts are forced into fringe areas where land is cheap, where regulation may be difficult, and where a minimal initial investment is all that is needed to establish a park, profiteering trailer park operators may go a very long way towards creating overcrowded, unsanitary, and they use bad words, and I'm not going to use that here. It's not, because I'll get in trouble. Anyways, it's not, but I have the report. So that's what I had to say because I felt that this was just important. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name's Tom Welty, and I live in the park. And I'm on the inside looking out. I've been there for 15 years. It's my understanding that 25 years ago, Holly Township lost the authority to oversee the park. I asked a lawyer 10 years ago, could that be changed? He said there's a court order that the park is under the influence of the state, not the township. I don't like that. I wish we were under your rules, your zoning, your ordinances for our own protection. We don't have that. You should change that. But it means you have to sue the state. It means you got to have deep pockets. It's going to be damned expensive to sue the state and change a state law. Somebody in Holly Township screwed up years ago and did not complete the paperwork at the time when you were fighting with when the township was fighting with the builder, and the builder won. The judge got tired of it going back and forth for years, and he finally said, to hell with it. You don't have any supervision over over the park anymore. So it's your own fault. How you're going to fix it, I don't know. But don't make it unlivable for us in the meantime. The current, now we change park ownership every 3 or 4 years, and each one seems to be worse than the last. Some of them were terrible. This one evidently has a lot of money. He's put it into the park, put in new roads, brought in, I don't know, 100 new houses. I've heard about phase 2. Phase 3 is just a whisper. I don't have any idea if there's any reality to that at all. We have not heard anything about what you people are talking about. We don't know what's going on. At the same time, we know that there's nothing you can do about it. What are you going to do? You know, on one hand, I want to apologize, but on the other hand, I want to live there I don't want to move. So step up and do something, even if it's wrong. We'll support you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Didn't even see you hiding back there.
Stacy Taylor, 15566 Falk Road. This whole thing started for me for quality of life. This, if it happens, will change my life completely. I'm on the forefront. I have an open front picture windows. I see everything that happens on Falk Road, even when somebody's doing something goofy like cross country down in the middle of the day. This is a picture of what the effluent discharge is doing to those wetlands. This was taken April 21st this year. I've visited with people that live over on Tucker on Lacey Lake, and they talk about how the crust is breaking off, the lake is dying, it's filling in with cattails, it's changing the demographics, or that's probably the wrong word, of the lake. But the little bit of a cutway that goes to Radley Lake, I've been told, is now almost walkable. That's not good. I just got back from Grayling, Michigan. It's where I grew up. And Camp Grayling is polluting the groundwater up there. The DEQ has doubled the amount of homes that are being affected by, I believe it's PFAs. And in addition to the doubling of the amount of wells, it's polluted the lake, Lake Marguerite, which is a huge lake. I learned how to swim in that lake. They can't drink their water. I don't know what the fish are like. I mean, I'm sure it's not good or healthy. They are trying to solve the problem because they didn't get ahead of this. It's been happening for years that this water has been leaching from the airfield and going across the groundwater into the wells and plumes. They're trying to determine how much of that's actually what's going on. It's a mess. It's also affecting, and right in the vicinity of the 2 wells that supply all of the city's drinking water. It's happening at South Road Jailfree Base. I realize this is a little different, but it's very important because your community is at stake. The drinking water for probably everybody in this room, to some capacity, will be affected. And from what I read, and there's so much documentation, you just don't understand. Okay, second topic. Beyond that, listening to NPR radio on the way home or way to work the other day. They are taking down the Atherton North and Flint. The Congressman Dan Kildee was a bad approach to approach public houses in the 60s. It was concentrating poverty in housing projects that are the least desirable in the community on the cheapest land. It got isolated because 475 got put in. Because of the density of the affordable housing, that the whole idea was to create that, it turned into a very bad situation. They are now spending $34 million on cleaning that up. I could keep going on. This isn't about anybody in Holly Hills. Never has been. It's their drinking water too. This is that 40 years worth of information has been reviewed, researched, a lot of it from the township's files itself. This has been fought for a very long time by very smart people, and there's a reason that people continue to fight because there's a lot at stake. And if we don't get this right this time, you may not be able to repair You may not be able to put a Band-Aid on it. You may not be able to reverse it. It is important, and you have an ability today to evaluate all of this information and to make some efforts and some, I mean, it's going to be hard. I get that. But like Lisa said, for PR, for Meritus, they better get this one right too, because this is a black eye, and once the papers get a hold of it and the media gets a hold of it, they need to do something right. They need to let the 274 they have there be their park and stop phase 2, stop phase 3, go back to the 5-acre agricultural that it was zoned at when they bought it, and thus protect that aquifer. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Hogan, you can't come up twice.
I can't?
Sorry. that would start a whole other cycle.
Just, I didn't want you guys to be distracted reading this while I was talking. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we will close public comment. Public hearings, we have none. Approval of the minutes. The minutes have not yet been submitted. They were not in our packets, unless you guys got something different than I did. So we will have to postpone that until our next meeting. Communications, we have none. So we're going to move into old business. I left item number 1 on there just to explain what was going on, but Supervisor Cullis already kind of did. So we will not be going into closed session tonight. Do you have anything you want to add on that?
On the closed session?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. I'll just explain real quick for the public, just procedurally, so they understand. There's only 3 reasons a board like us can go into closed session. One would be for attorney-client privilege. Second would be for the purposes of purchasing real estate. And the third would be for a employee review, like a contract review, if that employee requests that to take place. So just so you guys all understand how the Open Meeting Act worked and all of that, the original intent, why this was on the agenda, was in our response, or based on our request for the attorney to review the site or the consent judgment. But the way we're going to do it now is the Township Board is going to get the first bite at that apple, and as Supervisor Cullis said, and I hope it does work out that way, that the entire content of that will be made public. So we have no action to take on that item tonight. Supervisor Cullis, do you have anything to add on that, or am I good? Thank you. All right. So, moving on to old business number 2, Holly Hill site plan. Mike, I'll let you take over here. And
So one of the duties of the Planning Commission is to review site plans. Now, you don't actually do the review yourself, right? You have consultants and staff that help provide that review. So it's a multifaceted approach, right? We look at the zoning and land use. We look at the engineering, and we also look at fire and safety. And it's possible for one group to approve or recommend approval, but with other groups not recommending approval, so the overall decision, goes to the Planning Commission, right? So I say that, right? We look at this plan as a whole, right? We all understand there's a consent judgment that limits what we can and can't look at. One of the things that falls under is the use itself. It's determined that this is a permitted use for this property. Other things that we look at, this is for a mobile home park, right? And the state of Michigan has removed some of the local control for those types of uses. They are now go through the Mobile Home Commission at the state level. So the state themselves have put out criteria that they want to see as part of these developments. And as you remember at our last Planning Commission meeting where we discussed this, we went through those state requirements from a strictly zoning standpoint. And the site plan that was provided met the zoning requirements, right? We offered a couple of suggestions relating to noting that the right-of-way be shown on the plans. That's been updated. confirmed that there's no recreational vehicle storage on site. That's been confirmed. There was some discrepancy in the number of parking spaces. That's been addressed. The other things we talked about, internal street width. The state allows 21 feet, and then I believe it's like 31 feet if it's going to be parking on one side and require sidewalks. But it's up to the developer to decide what standard they want to meet regarding that. So they can put in a 27-foot wide road without on-street parking and without sidewalks. And that is the option that's being chosen. So that's consistent with what the state requires. We also asked that they consider the lighting in front of the mailboxes, to make sure that it was lit well enough for safety issues. And that's been addressed also. But that's looking at the planning and zoning, right? And so based on those criteria, it's our recommendation that site plan be approved, along with the approval that it receives approvals from the other reviewing agencies, right? So we have fire, we've had our engineer review. You've heard their comments tonight. When this goes back to the state, the things that they're going to look at are health, safety, and welfare, right? That's ultimately what they're going to make their decision on, what our recommendations come from. They're not going to look at the zoning or the use. They're going to see, all right, there's consent judgment, this can go here. That's good. So I think as you deliberate tonight, you should take into consideration the information that's been provided tonight, and the additional information that's just been handed out. You've heard the opinions of the engineer and the fire department that they need more information just to make sure that what's being offered can actually work. You've heard another important part of a site plan review is public comment. We always say the public can be 100% for something. That doesn't mean it's going to get approved. They can be 100% against something. Doesn't mean it's going to get denied. But it is a component of the review. You've heard a number of concerns, and those concerns have also been brought up by your township engineer. So again, right, as you deliberate, you should consider all the reports and all the recommendations. And I'm here to answer any questions regarding that. All right.
Do you have anything you want to add at this point?
No, nothing further.
Okay. No? Anybody? You have anything else? No. Yeah, okay. All right. Let's start around the table. AC?
No, I'm fine. Just the part with the conditions. That's the concern that I have. So if they're met, we move forward.
We're lacking information, plain and simple. We either can vote and turn it down, or we can table it until we get the information. That's the way I look at it.
Lloyd?
I agree. The engineer has some questions that haven't been answered yet. The fire authority has questions. These things all need to be finalized before we can consider approving this in the future. So I would suggest that we table it and give them time to work through those things. Hopefully they can. And then we'll look at it at that time.
Glenn?
You skipped her.
No, I was going. I was going to.
I wasn't ready then.
Well, I would mention the concerns, which I think the audience all have, is the Falk Road. But it sounds like that's the road commission has the final thing. But really, we've gotten two answers on that. As far as it sounds like we're being told they have approval, and we sound like nobody has seen approval. So that's confusing to me. But I have a real concern, especially if there's other phases, which you've never had answered yet, is how much traffic is going to end at Falk Road. And the danger there and the issues of Falk Road. I'm not sure we can force them to do anything else, but it doesn't make sense to me to dump that much traffic on a rural road like that. But that's going to be a road commission decision. Water sewer, I think, is a huge issue here. And we've not heard really an answer why they have not looked into hooking the village, or if that's even possible, because that would solve, I think, a lot of the issues the audience has, residents and non-residents of the park. I was glad to hear, by the way, somebody from the park coming in, because it shows I don't know a lot about it, but I drove through it. It is a very nice park. So if we're going to have a manufactured home parking, this is a Model 1. You have a lot of garages and things, very nice in that way. I'm just hoping the continuing phases are going to follow that. And that's the other thing is,
I know it doesn't look like we have anything to say, but it would be very nice to have sidewalks in there. All communities now that we're putting in, they're putting sidewalks in. I think it's a major mistake for them not to do that. If you look, they have a community center in that. How do you get there without walking on the road? And that becomes a danger. But I don't think we'll have anything to say in that. But that's my concerns, and I just like everybody, I think we have to table it because we don't have enough answers. But the water sewers, I think, a big issue that we're not getting answers to know what's really happening with that, and that's a major concern. Unfortunately, for many, I don't think we can stop any of this. But if we're going to do it, we've got to do it right because it's going to be a long-term project.
I concur. There's outstanding information that we don't have, and I'm not comfortable in making any type of decision without having all of the facts before us. So I agree that we should table it.
Okay. I'd like to try and get a couple of these questions addressed right off the bat. Just to put this to bed or get clarification. This whole thing about Phase 4 that came up at the last meeting. Can we get some more information as to where that is supposed to be going, when it is supposed to be happening, and what it's going to, what it's going to look like? I mean, that caught a lot of people off guard. And it's been asked, and I think we need an answer to that. Because I don't think we should be approving steps 2 and 3 at any point without knowing what might come after that. I think we need to see the entire picture.
The water sewer issue is a big
issue. Yeah, exactly.
We'll
be able
to keep adding more things.
Each time, add on to it,
so
do it all at once.
I think we are entitled to see. I mean, Phase 4 might be 10 years away. It doesn't need to be down to the every last detail, but from a simple standpoint of where it's going to be and how it would be connected to Phases 2 and 3 are something that we need to know. I am with the rest of the commission. I don't like getting crucial information dropped on my lap an hour before a meeting that, with the expectation that we are going to be able to review it and come to some sort of an intelligent decision. I think that would be a disservice to that's a disservice to our commission. It's a disservice to the residents of this community. So with that, I will entertain a motion.
So move to postpone or to table till the next meeting at least.
Okay. So we have a motion by Glenn Mitchell and a support by Stacy to table this until the next meeting, at which time I hope that, we had enough representatives here from the township and from the park who heard not only our concerns but the concerns from the community. I don't think it's necessarily fair to them either to have all of those answers right away, but by the time we come to this next meeting, I would like to hear some of those concerns addressed. Now, in all fairness, the public might not like the answers they're getting, but I believe they are entitled to getting some answers. So, any further discussion? Can I get a roll call for this, please?
Glenn Mitchell.
Yes.
Stacy Steckley.
Yes.
Lloyd Kernan.
Yes.
Tony Engelberg.
Yes.
A.C. Alray.
Yes.
Pat Feeney.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. So, I'd like to thank you folks for coming out regarding Holly Hills. As we keep telling you, we're doing what we can to get you the answers that you're looking for. The township board meets August 15th, if my memory is correct.
Yes.
So there will be more opportunity to possibly get some more information at that time as well. So, okay, moving on. The never-ending sign ordinance amount.
Should we tell them when the next meeting is? Our meeting?
Oh, our next meeting. Thank you. Right on the bottom here. Well, September 4th, 2018. Same place. We will be back here again. It is, but it's
right afterwards.
It's after, and we talked as a board last meeting, and it seems like everybody's going to be here. The November meeting down the road, we're probably going to move because it falls on election night, but we'll cross that bridge either later today or next month. So, all right, moving on to the ordinance that will never die, the sign ordinance.
Well, you know, we're almost there. Our changes each month are getting shorter and shorter.
Yep.
Right? So where we are right now, the amendments that you see in front of you are mainly addressing window signage and some minor edits that came up at the last meeting. So based on discussion, we increased the amount of window signage to 20% of all window area on the face of a building. And then we added the purpose for why we're having this requirement for the window signage. Another discussion that we had was related to like seasonal signs for agricultural products being for sale. Under the draft ordinance, we have under signs permitted in all districts a commercial on-premise yard sign for non-residential uses in residential districts, so including the agricultural zoning district. So what that is you'd be allowed one per frontage, 8 feet tall, maximum area 32 square feet that you'd be able to put up without a permit. And I think that would address the main concerns that we had, right? Because if you put it on your parcel, if you have multiple frontages, that would work out, and then you can change it depending on what season it is. So that's where we are with the sign ordinance. The next step would be to set a public hearing and keep this moving.
Good.
Can I get a motion?
Yes. So moved.
I'll support.
All right, so we have a motion by AC and a support by Stacy to set a public hearing for our sign ordinance for our September 4th, 2018 Planning Commission meeting. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. All right. New business. We have none tonight. Reports. Let's start with you, Glenn. Always start with you on reports.
Just put me on the spot. It seemed like a long time ago we went to the planning meeting. It was in Frankenmuth. That was very informative. Had a lot about the open meetings that I needed to know about, and some about the Right to Farm Act, and some things were interesting. So it was very good that I was able to go. Unfortunately, Stacy couldn't go. Was the only reason I went, but that was very good. So.
Only reason?
What? Pardon?
That's the only reason?
The only reason?
He feels hurt down here.
Oh, well, AC went too. Was fine. I guess that's all. I don't know anything else.
All right.
I'm glad that this many people came and talked about it. I was, again, very glad to see some people from Holly Hills actually came, because I think it's good to get their input. It is a nice manufactured home community compared to a lot. I know a few people that live there and things will. Yeah. I know you've had many ownerships and many problems with that. So, all right.
AC?
I have nothing to report at this time.
AC?
No, once I enjoyed the meeting, I thought it was a lot of good information, and I was really glad to have the number of individuals go to this training, which is a good thing. And I apologize for being 5 minutes late to this meeting. Hopefully I didn't miss the business portion of the meeting.
You're only about 3 minutes late. We started an extra minute late waiting for you.
Did you?
Yes.
Appreciate you.
Pat?
Nothing.
Lloyd?
Nothing.
Okay. So I attended that meeting in Frankenmuth as well. I'd like to publicly thank Supervisor Cullis and the township for providing these township training books for us. I had a chance to leaf through them at the event, and they're going to be quite informative for us. Other than that,
I got one thing.
Yeah.
So Livingston County is in the process of updating their master plan, right? And similar to how you guys, when you updated your master plan, you had to send around notices to everyone. They have done so to Holly.
Okay.
Oakland County is going to review Livingston County's master plan and to see how the land use is compared to the affected Oakland County communities that are on the border. So just to give you guys a heads up that process is going on right now. It's nothing you really need to do about it. Notice was sent to Ted And I also got copied on it, so I'm just forwarding on to you guys.
Who?
Email is forwarded.
No. Who does a county master plan?
Well, it depends.
Okay.
So I believe Livingston County is doing their own, but some counties hire contractors. So, you know, like McKenna, we've done them before. Typically, those that are in SEMCOG, you know, the counties have the ability to do them themselves. So their county master plans, the draft is available on their website. So if you get bored and want to check it out, it's there.
It's got to be a difficult task trying to take into consideration all the local municipality master plans and incorporating them into an overall.
You know, if you consider the process, though, right? When you go through the master plan process, you submit to the county. So they're kind of already doing it, you know, as it goes along, right? So they take more of a big picture approach, right? Well, you know, the individual community is looking at the micro, you know, what's going on at this corner. They're looking more, you know, how can the county help municipalities better? You know, where are the deficiencies that are there? What role can the county play in helping out? You know, Oakland County does a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's really the model that a lot of counties look at, and you know, as they modernize and you know meet the best practices that Oakland County has, you know, they're going through that process.
Interesting. Before moving into our next round of public comment, do we want to talk today about our November meeting, or do you guys want to think about it and talk about it next month?
It makes sense to discuss it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I can see.
Yeah, can wait.
Well, the one thing
you pick the date, you know.
The one thing I would like.
Far out, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. One thing I'd like, and I've talked with Supervisor Collison, I discussed it. It would be nice if here somewhere we had a calendar of who was in this room on a given night. Because as I said, I appreciate that the township, that the village parks were willing to move their meeting, but this was their meeting night.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
To be able to have like a layout of what's going on.
Right.
To be able to make an educated
Get something from the
decision.
village on that, or whoever.
Yeah, we'll coordinate. Why don't we?
Because it seems like the village would be the most we'd have
School
conflict
board.
with to that. You
Yeah.
know.
Well, two of us in the library boards. That's
When is your meeting?
second Tuesday each month.
So is
mark
the,
that one off.
well, second Tuesday would also be the village council because they meet the second and the
I
fourth.
think that's.
So, we're all in agreement. We're going to move that meeting, correct?
Right.
Okay. Why don't we? Let's let me get a copy of the calendar, and then September. That'll give us 2 months to figure it out, and that should you'll have.
Yeah, we'll make it work for us.
Okay.
The one thing I was going to jump in and say, if you're going to push it back, you know, you got to start thinking about holidays, right? Because Thanksgiving gets in there, and then, well, if you're going to move it back even farther, well, then what's?
I think
you know, the December meeting is, you know,
right.
You're only
right
looking
there.
like a week.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe a week.
Do it before the board before the township board. That's always been kind of the goal to it.
Yeah, and we will remember to not schedule it on a Monday or a Wednesday.
I would appreciate it.
One of our board members is a Zumba instructor.
Yes.
So, but we appreciate her being here tonight. Definitely appreciate that. So, okay, so we'll put that on the next reminder to discuss that at the next meeting. All right, moving on to public comment. You guys get your second bite at the apple. And they're off. All right. Let me get Miss Hogan before she. Although I'd like to see more of that dance routine.
I just wanted to. Lisa Hogan, 112 Hearts Drive. So I got some inside information from an executive from another development community, and gave me the number of open properties of the mobile home parks within basically a 20-mile radius. Right now there's 600 open properties. So, you know, again, we talk about our property values being affected by this as a community on a whole. You know, not just the people on Falk and the surrounding areas, but the people that live in that community. I mean, how do you get value to your home if there's 600 other facilities or sites open, and they're building another 300, 400, 500 more? So.
Well, you don't move into.
All right, who's next?
You better know that.
Go ahead.
My name is Sandy Martin, and I live at Holly Hills. When Holly Hills was started, these were expensive homes. There were garages, and we were told this was the diamond of all manufactured homes in the state of Michigan. When they last year put in 84 new homes on Sheffield and Coventry, which is a circle, not one of them have a garage. Not one of them is being kept up the way according to their rules and their regulations. We have parking on the street. We had a fire not too long ago at the very front, and if there had been an emergency call to get to the back, it wouldn't have happened, because there is not room for emergency vehicles when you've got as many emergency vehicles putting out a fire up in front. We, the ones that have lived there for quite a bit of time, are seeing their, what they call their new addition, being nothing but trash, running down our home values even more than what they run down.
They're all rentals.
And they're all rentals, and we were told in the very beginning rentals were not allowed when that manufactured home part started. Now every single one of those are rentals, and now we're at rentals and homeowners at the same amount. That percentage should not be. We are in favor of these people on Falk Road, understand their feelings. We are skeptical of our water conditions. I think people, the board, you people need to look into this more as to they're not living up to what they're supposed to be doing. Violations up the kazoo, and they're not taking care of them. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stacy Taylor, 15566 Falk Road. I actually feel for the residents within the park, because when this was all started, it was proposed 55 and older senior community where you owned your homes. Now all those people that bought homes and planned on retiring and living out their golden years in Holly are also trapped and vested, because they've invested their money in that home. They cannot sell it. I've heard so many stories. There's 3 families living in one house in there, 1 in the garage, 2 in another facility. Tara Katona, who has spoke at this meeting before, has now moved and they built a home here in Holly. But she's told me stories of gang-like activity, because there's nothing to do when it's all condensed like that. So they all stand in little pockets of people on the corner hollering up, hey, mama, what's going on, kind of thing. That's not right. And it's what happens when you have a dense population with nothing to do. There's going to be 700 families trying to use the community center and the pools, all the things that they say are so awesome about this place. That's a lot of people jamming into that situation. 1 family on our road has already sold their 11 acres and moved on. 2 other people, 1 including standing here at this podium, said they will leave for safety concerns. It's a 1/2 mile stretch that they're going to pave the entire side of the road after they level the forest. It's going to be pretty hard to watch. Lisa and John told us a couple days ago they've had the conversation, fight or flee. It's pretty hard to watch what you love and everything that is your life going to be completely changed, all for profit. And might I note to you that Meritus has long since left, and so has Boss Engineering. They don't care. I'm just saying.
Anybody else?
Yep.
Oh.
Hello, my name is Gisela Lentler King. I am from Rose Township, and I very well remember when this proposal about 30 years ago first came in front of the community. I have some of the same concerns now that I had back then, but I have a question for the community. does Holly Township have a watershed management plan? 20 years ago, the requirement came forth from the federal and state government that not only point source pollution, which is direct outfalls of effluent into a stream, but also non-point source pollution has to be regulated. That is runoff from parking lots, lawns, etc. And I would like to know what is the requirement for the community when it comes to non-point source pollution. The one item that was a really sticky point with the state was the outfall from the sewage treatment plant to the wetlands on site. And I would like to know how, over the years that have passed, how that has played out. We had various concerns. We had scientists from the state make a comment to the then Water Resources Commission of the DEQ. The reason, and there were very serious concerns, and of course there was a court case also. The state scientists had serious concerns, but the Water Resources Commission was basically bombarded by the law firm, and this is a firm that not only has a back door to the governor, but a front door, and that was Steiker McGossett. If you ever want to win your case and you have enough money, you go hire Steiker McGossett. So, but basically for the community, it's important to know what is the control of non-point source pollution, what is the control of the effluent, and frankly, any high-density development, such as a trailer park, excuse me, it's the old way of calling it, such as a manufactured home park, should really be connected to a sewage treatment plant. And Holly, Village of Holly has a plant that has been winning merits across the state for its well-managed plant. That should be one consideration. I have others, and I will forward this to you in writing.
Please do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm not sure how to say this.
Sir, just once again, please, your name and address for the record.
Tom Welty. I live in the park.
Thank you.
What's it going to take to get you people off your collective butts and take authority, get authority over the park? That's your job, and you're not doing it. Any disagreement there?
Are you busy on the 15th of this month? Please come to our board meeting.
And I'm not going to get into a back and forth with the public tonight, but what I will, to follow up with what Pat just said, August 15th, the township attorney, at meeting 2 months ago, I think it was, as a board, requested that the township attorney review the consent judgment that has basically tied our hands to see if we had any legal grounds to fight it. The township attorney on August 15th will have a meeting with the township board, and that question, among other things, will probably be answered. Until then, we can only do what the consent judgment tells us that we can do. Okay. Now, if the attorney tells us we have grounds to do something else, we will certainly look into it. Nobody up here likes the fact that an outside entity is telling us what we can and can't do in our own community. None of us were here 25 years ago when that took place.
Understand.
So,
I looked into it one time, and they said you have to sue the state, and you got to have a hell of a lot of money to win, but you're going to win.
Well, that's what our attorney, the township attorney, is looking into, because you can sue anybody for anything. If there's no grounds, there has to be a legal basis in fact to overturn that consent judgment. None of us up here are lawyers. That's why we asked the attorney to review the consent judgment, compare it with today's law and not what was going on 25 years ago, and see if there's anything that can be done. Right. Like you, we're all going to wait and see what the attorney has to say. Right.
The meeting is here?
The meeting will be here at 6:30 p.m. on the 15th. I will be here as well.
I'll be here.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Go ahead, Mark.
Mark Taylor, 15566, and I'm going to continue to bang my collective drum.
Just don't bang your head.
Once again, I know we got consent judgments. We're all aware of the inside-outside parameter of this thing, but I really, really want you guys to look into what happens on the perimeter of this. I mean, really. You may not be able to stop the inside, but everything doesn't stay inside that park. It's going to come across the road. It's going to affect us, and it's going to affect the greater Holly. It's going to affect the schools. It's going to affect all of that. But it's directly going to affect our water, directly affect possible leakage, sewage, contaminations, things of that nature, the aquifer, everything we've been banging the drum on forever. But we can't just say, yes, let's approve it without looking at the outside of the park. I mean, if I have a concern about the water coming across my property from that park, does Hubble, Roth, and Clark do a survey on that? Do they do an investigation? Somebody needs to look at, when this concrete pad is put there, what happens to the water coming across my property and all of the property on Falk Road, because we all get the water coming across property. And secondly, I'd like to bang this drum again. There's no reason that if this is built, that second entrance has to be directly across from the first 3 homes that are on Falk Road. It will be light pollution. It will be car pollution. It's directly across my home, so I care a heck of a lot. That thing could be 150 yards down the road, and especially since we don't know if Phase 3 is going in and Phase 3 has an entrance or not. I'm glad you guys are finally getting to the point where we're getting, what is Phase 3? Is there another entrance? We've been asking this for 3 months now. Meritus hasn't answered our questions. So is there Phase 3? Is there a third entrance? So if that third entrance is going down 100 yards down to the left, there's no reason to have that across from my driveway. Let's put that one 150 yards that way. Down by the dump. That property is all owned by the village and will not be built on until that dump is cleaned up. It's a super fun type of thing that Reuben found out. That property will not be developed across the street from that entrance. So why do it at my entrance? Light pollution, horrible. 1,000 cars a day across from my private driveway. Thank you.
Anybody else? Sue, come on up.
Sue Julian, 3505 Bradley Lake Road. I do have a suggestion of a area from which you might get some help. The last time around, 25 years ago, the Oakland County Health Department had a 3-part test for you. And I'd submit to you that that test has failed each time. They said for any additional changes, there should be a commitment to using sanitary sewers. I don't see that in the plan. The effectiveness of the on-site wastewater treatment plant had to be evaluated. We have evidence that that's failed a number of times. And the third part of that test was that there had to be assurance of capable management of the wastewater treatment plant. And I believe we have a lot of evidence that that also has failed. So I think that you might be able to go back to the test set out by the Oakland County Health Department in looking at your plan and get that information too.
Could you forward us that? Is that on a website somewhere?
I'll get it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Was that a hand up or no? Okay. Well, I was going to say, I didn't see a certain finger go up, so I figured.
It wasn't a bad guy. The simple fact is,
so your name,
Cliff
please.
Fishoda,
Thank you.
Lacey Lake. Simple fact is, it's so easy for these guys to hook this discharge into the sewer. They can utilize their own plant. All they got to do is bring one main up from the sewer, tie it in, that accepts the discharge. And if they were smart, they would negotiate with the village on a reduced rate because the water has already been purified. So that's my whole point, okay? Thank you.
Mr. Cullis, just for the public, can you step up and tell people what's going on with the village water system? I think you said there's been some discussions. I've heard it third hand, but I'd rather get it from
While he's thinking about it, can I ask Mike one question?
Sure.
Just, Road Commission, putting the driveways in, it looks like there's been an application as a question was been approved. Does the public have any input in that? Or not? I don't know the answer. That's why I'm asking you. I was hoping you knew the answer quickly.
Not generally.
No input at all from the Road Commission.
No.
So if you put application, and it's either going to be
they're going to apply their standards
and
right, because they have sight distance and
yeah. All right. Well, that answers my question. Thank you. Yep.
All right.
Just to add to your question on that, I have talked to the Road Commission. I know I made this comment to Mr. Taylor that the information I got was that the permit had been granted based, as you said, on their standards. The one thing that I've had an issue with the Road Commission since I've been in this office is that they tend to be reactive instead of proactive. And that was one of my concerns. When you hear them make a statement, we don't need a traffic study, the reason for it is because the traffic isn't there right now to study. The traffic doesn't get there until after you build the thing. And that's one of the arguments I've had. And I told you the next time I have a meeting coming up with them, that when I sit down, that's going to be one of the sidecars I'm going to take them to and have that conversation again. I'm sorry? Well, that's okay. I didn't hear what you said, though.
I said, so have them do it after the fact.
Well, but that's what. Well, that's why I said they tend to be reactive as opposed to proactive. So that's one of the things that I will be bringing up to them when I have this conversation, because we'll be having meetings over the engineering of North Holly Road as that gets developed and as we're involved in that. To answer your question, yes, I have had preliminary conversation with the Village of Holly, and they are open to discussions with both Meritus and Boss Engineering regarding the water. Boss Engineering's original response to us was that at this point we're still planning on moving ahead with the plan we have, but when I first talked to them, they didn't. Apparently, they'd had a conversation years ago when the Village of Holly wasn't willing to do that, but that was probably before the school was there and before they had a line there in the new facilities. This conversation is the village is willing to have that conversation and is willing to sit down and talk. It was their choice at this point to move ahead with what they have. I do know that when I talked to Mark Andrews at the DEQ, the facility that is there was built at the time to handle both Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3. And I even posed the question, I said, okay, but that was also 28 years ago. He said, doesn't matter, all of the standards today would still apply, and they have to recertify every year. So whatever new things have come down, they would have to certify to accommodate, and so far they've done that. It comes down to one of those, the law's written here, and if they fit within the parameters, you can't deny. So there are some issues there. We have had those conversations. I have done the research and had the conversations that I can have without crossing that line of obstructing or interfering. So we've had those conversations. When the attorney comes forward, we'll have an opportunity to have more. So.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
John Ewan, 15460 Falk Road. Concerning the road itself again, which is outside of the park, that's not part of the park. And I'm not on the board. I'm not a politician. I'm not an engineer, so I don't really know how much say-so you guys would have or input into what Falk Road could look like in 5-10 years. I mean, I thought a fireman told me that the county and the local municipality sort of worked together a little bit on what a road could look like. But I don't know, is that true or is not true, or do you guys have some input on how wide the road would be, where the is it egresses, where the entryways, and if the trees would stay, where they would run water lines maybe behind the trees instead of, the American way of ripping everything down and putting things in. Do you have some input on the county, or do you have some influence on that?
Mike, I'll actually let you.
So I think you got two words there: input and influence. Input, yes. Yeah. Influence. I guess it depends on how good George is talking with them. You know,
Be nice.
you know, and so you know the way how the county operates is, you know, they have their rules, and if you're within, you know, those confines, they're going to approve it, and you know, to apply a same standard evenly across the county. So, you know, we do meet regularly with the road commission and express our desires, but you know, at the end of the day, they end up doing what they feel is best, right, and what's easiest for them to maintain and operate, which doesn't always coincide with what the local community wants.
Do you have input as to like a miles per hour, like a 25 mile per hour road, that kind of thing?
So the way what'll end up happening is that they'll do a study, and they'll set the speed limit at what the 75th percentile of people driving is. Right, exactly. And what happens the majority of the time is that they'll increase the speed limits on these roads that people want the speed limits to decrease. So that's the process that they go through for that.
Falk Road has been likened to the tunnel of trees up north, Highway 119, north of Harbor Springs, where it's, if you've never been on that, you need to. There's a good Polish restaurant at the north end of it. But it's 25 to 30 miles of just beautiful along Lake Michigan, and it's a tunnel of trees. It's a one-lane road, and it's only 25 miles an hour. It's a one-lane road with white line on either side, and it's understood that it's a slow road that, you know, you have to pull over, kind of like we do now on Falk Road. We have to kind of pull over a little bit to let the other guy go. But that would be my vision of Falk Road, something, a beauty road, a scenic road, a very slow, you know, 25 miles an hour road. And then another thought that just occurred to me with, you know, with 800 units and all the water that we've been talking about, has the fire department or anybody looked at, is this community, are they going to need their own, like, little water tower to, you know, to provide all that water, like in case of a fire? Is that anything that's been looked at, or?
I'll,
That's one of our
well, hold on. Once he sits down, I'll let you stand up and answer the question on the record.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Step right up, sir.
Doug Smith, North Oakland County Fire Authority. One of our outstanding issues is having the community provide what's called sufficient fire flows. Right now what happens is they've got 2 wells that were originally put in 1,000 gallons a minute. As they filter the water, the filters begin restricting the flow. So over time, throughout the year, before one of their contractors come in, like Highland Maintenance, to maintain the filters, the amount of water available drops by maybe 500–600 gallons per minute, which in our opinion puts the residents at risk. We go to fight a fire because of the close distances. If you look at all of the national consensus standards, like the American Water Works Association, the NFPA standards, we need a minimum of 1,000 gallons a minute. They have committed to us that they will give us 1,000 gallons a minute if they're allowed to put a bypass around the filters. What that means, we hook to a hydrant, we start drawing waters, the water will flow around the filters to give us the full capacity of the 2 wells. The 2 wells over time, we're not convinced still put out the 1,000 gallons a minute. So I don't know that there's even 2,000. Our request was, give us a study, do some flow tests. You may in fact have to put an additional well in. That has not been answered yet. So that's where we're at on that.
Last meeting, you were handed a document that said that's going to be one of the possible.
Stacy, hold on. I'll let. No, you're okay. It just I can't have back and forth this way.
But if I just follow up, the question was on the water tower.
Yeah.
How people get around the issue of sinking another well is you put a water tower in, and then you store 300,000 gallons of water, which allows you to meet the fire flow for an hour or 2 hours without having to pump more groundwater. You fill the tower when the residents are sleeping and not using the water, so you don't need as many big high-capacity wells.
Thank you.
I just wanted to address the question about the roads, and our planner so graciously said it depended on how well I talk. I just want to clarify that, first of all, the roads in the township are either Class A roads, which belong to MDOT, that would be I-75, or we have primary roads and secondary roads, which belong to Oakland County, and it falls under their jurisdiction, and they have what are considered subdivision roads, which pretty much explains itself. It is true that when I took office and I started talking to the road commission, they literally and actually told me that we don't typically confer with the township on that. And through multiple phone calls, I've opened up some of those communication lines, and with help from some other township supervisors, I've been able to do that. The bottom line is it doesn't necessarily come to how well I can talk to them, but it starts to come down to, does the township have money that they're willing to pitch in to help make these projects go forward? Because the bottom line is, you guys have heard it on the news, the money for roads, because of the recession that we've gone through and the tax decreases in property taxes, the counties, the local municipalities, the village of Holly, everybody's almost 10 years behind on road repairs. And the issue is now they have to go where the need is the strongest. One of the reasons why we push them to go for the grant money for North Holly Road, because the truth is North Holly Road never would have gotten the attention it needed without that grant, because we don't have the traffic. 14,000 cars a day versus 40,000 cars on Walton Boulevard in Waterford. Who's going to get the attention? Walton Boulevard is. And it won't matter how good I can talk. But I just wanted to clarify that so that you understood how that process works on the roads. And the term you've been looking for is a natural beauty road. We have one in Holly Township. It takes a while. I know you're in the process of applying for that. We have one in Holly Township. Karen, are you?
Kurtz Road. Kurtz Road.
It's Kurtz Road? Okay, I knew it was up in that.
Kurtz Road.
It's Kurtz Road. If you walk up there, you will see that it's a natural beauty road. The sign is posted. It's a natural beauty road. And just so you know, there's always two sides to every story. The one complaint I get from residents that live up in that area is the trees are growing down into the road and the branches are out, and the road commission says, yeah, we can't touch it. It's a natural beauty road. So there's always a little bit of a pushback, but I just wanted to say that for clarification.
Okay. Anybody who has not spoken that wishes to speak?
Denise Camp, 15600 Falk Road. Just wanted to say that the petition that we had filled out, it's in. Cross your fingers. We're hoping it gets approved for the beautification of Falk Road.
Thank you. Anybody else? Hearing none.
No,
All right.
wait, I got one more.
Well, then jump up. You're right there.
I'm making sure everybody else has their opportunity, because I hang on to that last opportunity, that last moment, to tell you that this Saturday is the party that I've been talking about in every one of these meetings that you've all been to. The Holly Area Chamber of Commerce and the Moose Club is having Blues, Brews, and Barbecue this Saturday night. Dinner 5 to 7 and then 7 to 11 is music. Come and celebrate Holly. You know, we've got a lot of challenges and a lot of issues going on, but we can come together and have a good time.
You say music 9 to 11?
No, 7 to 11.
All right.
I'm sorry, what are the times again?
5 to 7 dinner, 7 to 11 music. And there is music the other time too. We have 2 bands. In front of the Moose.
Members, any other business? Hearing none, we will adjourn this meeting at 8:15 p.m. Thank you again, everybody, for coming tonight.
If I can get your attention before you leave the room.
Entrance and when they build necessary to manufacture. But they
Mueller
have
came
good,
down to meet
very
you
good.
folks. If you have any questions or conversation, you want to meet this gentleman. He sat patiently and waited through the meeting. So go ahead and say hello to him and have a conversation.
Right. It's fine anyway.
I hope my phone is in my car. Oh no, it's in my back pocket. Where did Reuben?
So anyway, they have a better lobbyist, so they have
That's
and it seems like that's more important than even making something. Instead of looking at it,
I'll put Stacy in charge of that.
that's a safety issue to me.
right. You know, seriously,
We are getting everybody out.
1,500 feet maybe it is that you can have with the car second mandatory just for the fire.
Excuse me! Everybody, if you guys could do me a favor, we need to kind of wrap up things in this room here. So if you could go ahead and step up.